In our final episode of Global Strategies, I would like to introduce and discuss some basic mission principles that will help us be more effective as we initiate new ministries and plant new churches. We will see that not all outreach is the same, and each requires various strategies in order to be effective. Okay, we've been taking a brief look historically at the mission of the church and how there's a need for both nurturing and sending structures, or wineskins, if we're going to fulfill the mandate of the church. And since we're talking about global outreach, let me here provide a few missiological principles. Of course, these are also applicable in each of our countries as we seek to reach those from varied ethno-linguistic and socioeconomic backgrounds. See, outreach initiatives typically have 4 stages of development. There's the pioneer stage, and that's where there's first contact with the people group. This then leads to the training of national leadership during the paternal phase, which eventually should transition to the partnership phase as national leaders work as equals, and those who then began the ministry. And finally, foreigners, no matter how well they have become part of the culture or well-intentioned, should become lesser partners and only participate by invitation during the participation phase of the mission process. See, the overlap of these stages of missions work, particularly in the last 200 years of modern mission expansion, has often led to confusion and even conflict. But being aware of these phases can help us understand why churches and agencies sometimes pursue different missions priorities, and why it's not always so easy to correctly identify what the current priority should be on any given field. Balance is required between the needs of the local church and the need to evangelize the unreached. There needs to be a balance between modality and sodality ministry wineskins. And as we consider various methods of sharing the gospel, we'll discover that there are several types or stages of evangelism. And as we reach beyond Samaria towards the ends of the earth, it is crucial that we understand 2 fundamental mission concepts which have been described by 2 matrices or scales. These are the E scale, or evangelism, and the P scale, or proximity. To be effective, we must consider the cultural distance between the one sharing the gospel and the intended hearers, which is described by the E scale, as well as how close the unevangelized person is in the society to any existing churches, which can be described as the P scale. Now, the E scale ranges from E0 to E3 evangelism. See, E0 describes evangelism to those of Christian families and people where no real cultural barriers needs to be crossed. E1 is evangelism that is directed to those outside our church, but still within our own culture. It is often very effective, for the hearers are most likely to understand the communicator, as there are minimal barriers. However, evangelism that is somewhat more difficult due to more barriers is described by E2 and E3 on this scale. For example, E2 is sharing the gospel with those from different yet somewhat similar cultures, such as, say, between one European country and another, or a Russian speaker in an adjacent country to Russia. But E3 evangelism is the most difficult and has the most challenges, as is to very different cultures. This is most difficult for the communicator may have to cross 3 barriers: a church to non-church barrier, a language barrier, as well as a major lifestyle barrier. It is important to realize that this scale does not so much reflect geographic distance, but cultural differences. Typically, as a strong national church is established through E2 and E3 evangelism, new local churches can then combine with E1 evangelism. See, the mission effort must not be blind to the reality of the differing cultures within a country, for this blindness can lead to the ineffectiveness of the mission effort in that country. The focus must be people groups, not just geographical areas. But more on that after the break.
This series is based upon our MCNet coaching and ministry guides. There are basically 2 parts to the series: 12 episodes that cover the 5 sections of the coaching guide, and 18 episodes that cover the 8 workshops of the ministry guide. As a team, we have had the opportunity to serve in various parts of the world over the last decades, using these materials to equip leaders and coach ministry teams throughout our ministry coaching network. These ministry team workshops in episodes 13 to 30 are intended to equip members of the body as they serve on ministry teams. The importance of mentoring, team building, and multiplication strategies are discussed here, and these workshops coincide with the leadership team coaching in episodes 1 to 12, which cover big picture issues that affect the whole ministry. Each workshop has several episodes and can be listened to independently, though if you have the time, it would be helpful to listen to all of them, as they are connected and build upon each other. A couple of the workshops have only one introductory episode here, as the topic is covered in greater depth in another of Phil's podcast series, for which you will find links below. You can also check out our Christian Leadership Institute training program. This is a unique approach to ministerial training based on a competency-focused mentorship. The free materials for this series, as well as the coaching and ministry guides, are available from the links in the description box below. Just as many others have, we are sure you will find our other Leadership Matters podcast series helpful for you and your ministry.
I've been using the term people groups to define the largest homogeneous group of people within which the gospel can spread without encountering major acceptance barriers. On the one hand, unreached people groups is a group of people within which there is no local indigenous community of believing Christians able to evangelize them. The gospel often spreads within homogeneous cultural groups within a region where a church has been established. However, prejudices between people groups can limit its expansion between peoples who may be geographically close, but with large cultural and historical differences. The E-scale views the process from the perspective of the communicators. It is the distance between them and the potential respondents. Some have defined the term missionary as referring to those engaged in E2 or E3 communication of the gospel, while those engaged in E0 or E1 evangelism as evangelists. This may be getting a little bit too technical and narrow of a definition, but the reality is that all believers are to be witnesses of Christ with those they know, even though not all believers have been gifted or given the sphere of influence of an evangelist. Similarly, not all evangelists may have the gifting or sphere of ministry to cross the largest of cultural barriers that a missionary is uniquely gifted and called to do. We're going to turn to the P scale, which views the process from the perspective of the potential converts and the churches that are planted within their culture. Using the P scale, Winter further divides missionary work into either regular or frontier missions. See, regular missions occurs when cross-cultural Christian work is spread within a culture where churches have already been established, such as with P0 or P1. He describes frontier missions then as cross-cultural Christian work that seeks to establish churches within people groups in which a church does not yet exist, such as in P2 or P3. Obviously, differing strategies are needed in order to be effective in each of these stages, particularly in difficult frontier missions. It is important to not define these steps of missions just according to geography. For example, someone may be in a faraway location training Christians, which would be labeled P0, while someone could be in their own passport country yet be working to evangelize a minority that has no church yet established among it. So though geographically closer, this could be identified as P2 or P3. Various definitions have been developed to describe people groups according to major cultural blocks, which can be defined by their culture, their traditions, language, and values, as well as societal groups. But differing cultural blocks usually need individual church planting efforts, while differing social groups usually need specific evangelistic tactics. What sort of setting are you currently engaged in? And how distant are you culturally from your target group? How much distance do they have from a witnessing church? And have you developed your strategies with this in mind? Okay, as I wrap up this final episode of this workshop on global strategies, I wonder if you have ever considered how we'll know when the world has been reached. Is this even an attainable goal? How will we know when the task of world evangelism is complete? Is completion defined by when every individual on the planet is a believer? Well, as we know, God's heart is that the whole world may hear the good news of His redemption and restoration. Yet what does whole world actually mean? I would join other missiologists by suggesting that the evangelization of the world does not necessarily mean that every individual will be personally reached, or that every individual and every people group will have personally heard the gospel. However, it does mean that every group of people represented on the earth will have relatively easy access to a reproducing church within their own culture. As we saw with the P scale, being in proximity to a community of believers provides the best opportunity for others to hear the message of the good news. This is why in this series we have been focusing on establishing and reproducing healthy churches, so that they in turn can plant more churches in their community and beyond. We have laid a foundation of healthy leadership in the role of mentoring and developing others and building healthy teams. In this episode, we then built upon those principles by understanding some of the missiological dynamics such as nurturing and expansion structures and the evangelism and proximity scales. See, it is conceivable that at some point in the foreseeable future there will be no more P2 or P3 non-believers. Everyone on the planet will have access to a gospel witness within their context with minimal barriers. In simplest terms, this is what world evangelization means. How about within your culture? Is there a reproducing church witness? Is your church or ministry involved in planting a church within a people group that does not have easy access to a local church? This workshop is part of our team coaching series created to assist those serving in the body of Christ. The goal is to help you and your team grow healthy, multiplying churches. This workshop corresponds to leadership team coaching in episodes 1 to 12. Now, the complete workshop, Global Strategies, is covered here in episodes 25 to 27 and is available as a download. This workshop is part of the playbook discussed in section 4 of the leadership team coaching, which is in episode 12. You can also follow the links to the free resources for this workshop, which include Cultural Intelligence Survey and the 3 Structures of Ministry. There's also a link to my multicultural teams and missional church podcast series in which I discuss the topic in greater depth. In our next few episodes, we'll conclude this series by applying some of these global principles and realities to a local church level in our Local Strategies workshop. What does a local expression of the global mission really look like? What does having both a global and a local approach to church expansion really mean, and why is maintaining a multiplication mindset so important?